Alright, so this is the story pretty much about Noelia Castillo Ramos, or Ramos. I don't speak Spanish, so sorry if I'm butchering the name, but pretty much she was a 25-year-old girl that pretty much for the last, 2 years has been trying to unalive herself. So basically, in her past, she was attacked by her ex-boyfriend who raped her, and then pretty much again in 2022 when she was in assisted living in, I think, Barcelona, she was gang raped by three men. And pretty much after that, she decided that she no longer wanted to be on this planet, which is understandable from the mental taxing. So they said that she was diagnosed with OCD, and then she was bipolar also. So I can imagine the mental strain from something like that, where now you're obsessing over a negative in your life that happened to you, and you can't seem to get that off your own brain. And I can understand. So pretty much what ended up happening was she attempted to unalive herself by jumping off of the fifth floor of her apartment building. And when she did that, I guess her father happened to witness it. He witnessed her, witnessing her attempting to unalive herself, and pretty much, I guess that was equally traumatizing for both, the father and for her. But she ended up going through with it, and pretty much she ended up surviving and became a paraplegic, being paralyzed from the waist down. So pretty much after that, of course, she was like, well, this sucks. This sucks extra. It sucked before, but now it sucks more. So now, her drive to want to unalive herself was only higher. And so in 2021, in June something, they legalized euthanasia in Spain. If I hadn't already mentioned that this happened in Spain, but basically they legalized euthanasia for humans that were in immense suffering, or great pain, great mental tax, or whatever it was. And pretty much you just have to go to the court, get a court order, and basically disappear. You can leave this planet by your own means, at a hospital, and you don't have to traumatize, your family or your friends by, them walking in, seeing, you swinging around, either that or you bleeding all over the ground or something like that. You can do it however you feel. So pretty much what ended up happening was whenever she did that and she went to go get the court's approval, her father attempted to block it, and basically saying that, she was mentally unwell and that she shouldn't be allowed to make a decision like that. So pretty much he ends up stalling out her, her euthanasia for 21 months. Now, keep in mind here that she was in immense pain, immense suffering. So after the fall, she basically was left with, crippling back pain that left her to the point where she couldn't even really sleep anymore. And then she just had this crippling, back pain associated with it, along with the ability to not even use her, lower body. So I can imagine, that probably comes with some things that weren't mentioned, like where you can't even, go to the bathroom on your own anymore. A lot of your independence has just been stripped away from you in an attempt. You were already trying to leave, and now you're left off worse than you were beforehand, which is insane. That's the greatest fear of everybody that probably, attempts something like this, and she was given it. Anyways, basically, after a 21 months going back and forth in appeals with her father, the court finally gave her the approval to, euthanize herself. Her parents, of course, going back and forth with her. They're going to every news station they can. They're holding protests against euthanasia, saying that, you should just go find Christ. And I've got such a problem with that. I grew up in the church, and, I understand, but they're like, man, they're just like, you're going against the plan. So if this was the plan isn't very good, and I'm not enjoying the plan. So, maybe the fact that, euthanasia was legalized is part of the plan for me. At least that's how I kind of feel about it. Because, it's got to go both ways. There's two sides to this street. Yeah, people are always so wrapped up with, like, well, this is the plan, so you can't deviate from the plan. It's like, well, I hope that, this rape that happened and, this incident where now I'm left paralyzed entirely, I hope that wasn't also a part of the plan. Anyways, basically, finally, yesterday, the court gave her the approval to be euthanized, which was, March the 25th. So today, earlier, she was euthanized in the fashion that she had planned, which was where she wanted to go out pretty much honorably, where honorable discharge. She wanted to have a picture of her childhood puppy, a portrait of her mom that I think she did herself, and then she also had a picture of herself from the first grade, and then a picture of herself from her childhood. So basically, she just wanted all these happy moments in her life, and she wanted those as pictures around her, and then she pretty much wanted to be, in a really, really nice dress that she had, and pretty much, she just wanted to go out peacefully in her fashion instead of, waking up every day in agonizing pain and, yearning for the end. Which also brings up the fact that before, we even got to this, her parents came out and pretty much were like, we can, because I saw some of the news reports that they had translated from Spanish, because, I can only speak the one language, the English. But pretty much they had said that they would help her in any fashion they could that didn't involve euthanasia. So they pretty much said that they would help her, with her financial issues that she was having, and they would help her, with her living situation. They would take care of her, and they would get her the therapy. So keep in mind, she's been in therapy since, she was 13 years old. So I'm figuring at 25, that's 12 years of therapy. That's 2 college degrees right there, 3 really. And I feel like at a certain point, therapy can only go so far. And especially with someone with no desire to survive anymore, I just don't think there was any saving her. And I feel like wanting to save her in itself was selfish. That might be not liked, but I feel like it really was coming from, I feel like her father coming from selfish thought processes, because, they were like, basically her parents were like, well, we don't want her to die because, we want her to be around. She will be missed. And it's like, that's really selfish saying that she will be missed. You're not thinking about the fact that she is missing out on some of the greatest parts of life, and she's also in immense suffering, that alone with the ability not to sleep. She's probably not having that great of a time. Like when someone makes a call like that, you have to be pushed to the end, like to the ledge, and then further than that for you to want to, do something like this, especially after one previous attempt. Usually stuff like that is what opens up a lot of people's eyes, and they're like, wow, that almost happened. I need to change. They get that breathtaking moment where they're like, wow, life isn't as bad as I thought it was. Coming that close to death has made me realize that I really want to be here. And she didn't get that openingness, that eye-opening. She didn't have that change of heart. She wanted to be here even less afterwards. So being that that's the case, that she was serious, like the mental, disorders that come into play also, don't help with that. But some people, they live in their own heads, and when you live in your own head, sometimes that can make you not want to live here anymore. I understand. I understand. I really hate that the parents put themselves in a situation where basically their daughter, basically started to resent them in her later stages of life, pretty much because, her father was trying to keep her here and not even listening to the pain and suffering that she was going through in general. And he pretty much was just like, I want you here regardless. I don't really care. And pretty much said that she didn't feel bad for him anymore. Like, she felt bad at one point that, he witnessed what he had to witness, because I'm pretty sure he had to go through therapy for what he witnessed happening. And then trying to keep her here after the fact, she basically said that she just didn't feel sorry for him anymore. That, considering that, she's no longer here with us anymore, there is no get back from that. That's her final memory of you, and it's going to be a memory of just disdain for what they attempted to do, and disregarding everything that you've said, like, just out of their own selfish desires. But anyways, this was just a really sad story. And I read it and I was like, wow, this is really sad. I was like, I don't think I've read anything this sad in a while. But I'm glad that she finally alleviate herself from her own pain and, come at peace with herself, despite what everybody else is saying. Because, people don't think about it, but people are really fast to, put down pets, especially in the U.S. Like, you'll have a puppy and someone will be like, oh, the puppy, it broke its leg. How much is that going to be? And, the vet will be like, oh, yeah, for us to, splint it and do the surgery, all that, it's going to cost you about $8,000. They're like, oh, we have to put him down. And it's like, You were so quick to do that. A lot of people don't even get second opinion. Like, people put pets down for no reason. Like, they put pets down just because we have too many. They put pets down just because they can't afford the bill. They put pets down when, pets are immensely suffering. Man, a situation with a human, where we live, let's say 75 years, and I go to work now, and I'll see people that, they're just limping around, and I'm like, God, what happened to you? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I fell 40 years ago. It's like, oh, well, that doesn't hurt. And they're like, oh no, it hurts like a bitch. And I also have 80,000 in medical bills and 40 in student debt, and my pills cost $500 a month, and it's not covered by insurance. It's like, ugh, I don't know if I would have wanted to stick around after that. It's just being honest. Like, it's kind of blunt, but it's very honest at the same time, because it's like, we put the puppy down for less. But when humans, we're going through, cancer or, other ailments, heavy mental burdens that, where you witness something so traumatizing, like that you are just like, wow, where sometimes, the mental trauma that you just went through, you literally cannot survive with anymore, where you just are no longer there. But anyways, let me give you a quick story from high school. So back in high school, we had this guy who pretty much he decided he wanted to unalive himself. After his brother had unalived himself. And what was crazy about it was mainly there was 4 brothers, and pretty much all 4 of the brothers committed unaliving in tandem within maybe like a 3-week period. And then on that 3rd week, the father of those 4 boys, he also committed, the unaliving act, which left just the mother alone. And man, I used to work at a food pantry on weekends, and I would see her in general, and I was like, wow, you can tell that ate, like, into her soul, like, in a fashion that I don't think she was there anymore. It was really sad to witness, just because, it's like, wow, that is insane. The mental burden there is, like, that's a pain that I don't think any human should have to go through in general. And, being that this was a food pantry that was run through the church, of course, was like, well, Jesus will bring you through this pain and through this suffering. And it's like, I don't know, man. This pain and suffering that was a part of the plan is not very good, and I'm not enjoying it. So, but anyways, that would have been one of those situations where me mentally, I would have been like, yeah, no, I gotta check out. Clock out time is now, because everything you've built, because these weren't young children, they weren't like 5-6-year-olds. Or, not saying that a 5-6-year-old you're not attached to, or that it's like, oh, I can just make another. But it's not like, not that they were young, but these were like 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I think one was in his 20s. And it's like, yeah, these were children that, you've spent a lot of time with. You've built everything with these children, and all of a sudden, just gone. Just everybody. And even your husband that, you spent, 30 years with. I don't know how long, but, probably 20, 30 years with, and then just gone, just like that. And it's really sad. And at that point, it'd be like, wow, this person has gone through great mental turmoil. We should probably let them, do what they want with themselves. But no, here, you attempt to unalive yourself, and you go straight to jail. And then also, I can imagine the medical bills that they're going to stack on you for, life-saving treatment. That $5,000 ambulance ride, and the possibly $500,000 hospital bill for life-saving care and the ICU and all the nurse treatments and all that, and then the meds that you might have afterwards. So it's like, yeah, just let her go. Just let her go. But anyways, yeah, that's a sad one. But I really wanted to talk about it, get it off my mind. Yeah, that's pretty much it.